Actually transferred into our shelter she was found in Louisa County. They picked her up and they had her for the stray hold period. She was in really, really bad health at that point. She had an ulcerated mass on her left ear, where the entire, it was a big mass basically that was open. So they knew immediately that was going to be an issue. Louisa County doesn't have a clinic like we're fortunate enough to have at our shelter. So they transferred her to us thinking maybe there's something that we can do here. If not, it seems to be to the point that it would be humane to just let her go that way. And so they transferred her in, and basically the clinic staff just fell in love with her. Even in the state that she was in, she was pretty underweight, anemic. She was really matted and infested with fleas. She was just like a train wreck. And even then, she was still her normal self, just like asking for attention and being really loving towards everybody. So I think they just decided, we're going to do what we can and try to save her. So at that point, I think she had 2 surgeries overall on her ear, which basically just removed the pinna completely to get rid of the ulcerated mass. And she did well for a little while. She was actually moved out to our lobby in the shelter and made available for adoption, and of course got adopted almost immediately because she's beautiful. And within I think they ended up having her for about a week. She was returned because the cancer came back, and they were first-time cat owners, and it was just a lot to deal with at that time. So they returned her. She went back to live in the clinic for a little while, and I by that point was already so in love with her. So we knew that the cancer was back, but I had grown so attached to her, so I would go back in the clinic and spend time with her, and just try to get in every minute that I could with her. And so I decided to take her into foster. It was maybe 20 minutes after I got her home that I was like, well, this is it. This is for good. So she's been in foster. She was in foster for, I believe, almost 9 months, which is an extremely long time. But during that time, she had the surgery to remove the cancer that had reappeared kind of right on her brow bone. So they completely went in and took that out. And it actually turns out kind of an interesting phenomenon. The type of cancer that was on her ear when she came in is called squamous cell carcinoma, and it's really aggressive and really it's very easily it spreads. So it was kind of assumed the cancer that was on her eye was the same thing because it was within 2 centimeters away. When they did a sample from the tumor that was on her eye, it actually turned out that it's not the same type of cancer, and it was a mast cell tumor. Which from what I understand is not all that common in cats. So it was kind of already just kind of a weird situation. But they were able to remove that, and they sent out to test the margins for it. And as of right now, she seems to be cancer-free. So,
ooh.
yeah.
Think, it'll be great to foster a cat.
It was her. It was just, there wasn't another cat at the shelter that I felt the need to do that. It was her. She's really, really, really special. I think everybody that meets her can just feel that she's special. The vets certainly did. That's why they chose to save her.
And how is she with the dogs?
She's good with the dogs. She is definitely the boss of the whole household now. From the time we got her home, we kept her separate for a few days in our office just to kind of like make it a smooth transition. And then from the time that we've integrated them, the dogs they're not the type, they don't snuggle all up together, and they don't really romp around and play together, the dogs and the cat. But they respect one another. They do really well. They can be in the same room. They'll all snuggle, like lay with us in the bed and everything, and they're fine. But she comes into the room and the dogs are at alert. They know she's here.
Watch out, there's Aurora.
Yep, the boss is here.
And so, when you talk about adoption, now you work at the shelter, so you see people come in. What does adoption do, not just for the animals, but for the people?
She's completely changed my life. Up until the point that I really met her, I am a card-carrying dog lover. I love dogs. I love animals, period, but I am a dog person. So meeting her, it's just kind of given me a whole new outlook. Having her in my home, I've never actually had a cat of my own before. So it's kind of like a learning experience. But she's just completely opened my eyes. I'm a cat lover now. I definitely wasn't before, and now I see cats kind of in a whole new light. So, she's definitely changed that for me. She's completely turned that around, and now I think I'm like about equal, cats and dogs.
It's funny how cats do have personalities. People don't think they do.
Yeah, they definitely do. She has a really distinct personality. She is very needy. She loves attention. She can go off and do her own thing and take a nap here and there, but she is a people cat for sure. Anytime she sees an opportunity to get attention, if we're, on the floor or on the couch or whatever, she beelines right over to us just to get some attention.
That's crazy. Let me ask you the difference between, we talk a lot about fostering, and we talk a lot about, the adoption, obviously, process. And most people who visit, we are very fortunate to have the SPCA that we have, obviously, to have full veterinarian staff and the whole thing. But and I think a lot of people think, well, they're treated really well there. But there's a big difference between having an animal in a shelter and going ahead and putting them in a home. Talk a little bit about that.
There's a huge difference. I mean, we do the best that we can for the animals that are in the shelter, but the reality is there's not round-the-clock care. I mean, we don't have people that stay overnight. I mean, with her, after being returned when the cancer came back, she was in the clinic being housed just to kind of like for monitoring. And from that point, I mean, that's when I really fell in love with her and was spending time with her. So I wanted to take her home. And in the time that I had her home, I mean, I was able to really kind of like nurse her and clean, it was opening every day from her messing with it. So I was able to, clean that every day and just keep an eye on it and monitor her and everything. And I think that that's just the difference is when they're in the shelter, I mean, she was in a room with other cats because that's how it had to be, but other cats stress her out. So she got to be in an environment where she can just be at peace and kind of like do her own thing and decompress a little bit. And I think that makes a huge difference for their health. Their mental health is going to affect, her immune system and that sort of thing. I think that it was definitely the best thing for her and us to come into a home.
And don't you see a difference between animals when they get that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think fostering is so important. I think a lot of people view it, if I'm not able to adopt, if I'm only able to keep them temporarily, it's not going to be there's not as much of an advantage to it, and it's just not the case. I mean, especially for cats, dogs, really any of our animals, them being able to go into a home environment, even if it's just temporary, we're able to gather behavior notes on them that we didn't know before, because the way that animals act in a shelter versus how they are in a home is a complete difference.
It's so wild how they do. How much better it is. And,
yeah.
And I think just that one-on-one attention, especially dogs, I think.
Yeah.
Even more so. Now, both your other dogs, are